So, what are felons barred from doing? And if you're a felon too, are you looking to see if Trump is getting the same rights that you are? So, felons, now that he's a convicted felon, it varies by state. So, this is what he is barred from doing. In New York, where he was convicted, there are collateral consequences of being convicted as a felon. So, felons in New York cannot hold many public offices, including elected positions. So, in New York, technically, he couldn't be mayor or governor, but Trump is no longer a New York resident or citizen since he's there so much. People think he lives in New York. No, he's in Florida now. So in Florida, felons, they lose their civil rights, including the ability to hold public office and serve on a jury. So he can't run in Florida. He can't hold office in Florida or New York. But there's nothing in the Constitution that doesn't say he can't run for president. Isn't that crazy? He can't run for office in New York. He can't run for office in Florida for, city or federal, but he can run for president. Wow. So will he be able to get his rights back then as a felon? And if you're a felon, you're looking at this and you're probably wondering, well, again, I never got my rights back because I know in some states, as a felon, you can't vote. So in New York, a felon can apply. This is called a certificate of good conduct to restore all the rights after a certain period of time. The charges against Trump, they say, are Class E felonies, for which the period is 3 years. Some people think because he's a felon that it's a big deal. I mean, it is in some ways, especially if you are a felon. But for these charges, I'm not an attorney. I'm just reading this, and this is from CNN. He has small charges. Now, Florida requires felons to apply for clemency through a special board. But in the case of out-of-state convictions like Trump, it defers to the state where the person was convicted. So again, all this is going to go to New York to see what he can do if he can get this taken off his records in about 3 years. If I'm correct, he's 78 now, and he's going to be doing all this while running. Another question. So if he is convicted, because he is convicted, but if he's reelected, could he pardon himself? Now, can you pardon yourself? So in this case, you can. Presidents have the power to issue pardons for federal offenses. So he was convicted of a felony in New York. Okay, but it wasn't a federal offense, which is interesting. So if it was a federal offense, he'd probably have a chance to pardon himself. How do you feel about that? I get in office and I pardon me. Or, what's his name? Joe Biden could pardon him. Now, the state of New York could also pardon him, but that state's governor is a Democrat, Kathy Hochul. She has praised his conviction. So, I don't think he's going to get a pardon from her. Felons, we hear about this. They can't vote. Now, why exactly can they vote? So in Trump's case, it says most likely Trump is a Florida resident. So listen to this. And Florida defers to New York law on the question of felony voting. In New York, felons can vote as long as they are not incarcerated. So you can be an incarcerated felon, or you can be a felon that's not in jail. But in New York, you can vote. Interesting one coming up. Will Trump get prison time? So his sentencing is July 11th. This is 4 days before the Republican National Convention coming up. So he's going to get sentenced, and then 4 days later, he's going to be at this convention. Now, the judge could either say, You're going to have to do a little time, but we'll do it after the election. So if you do it after the election, are you doing it after he becomes president? Then he has to go to jail, or if he's a regular citizen and he has to go to jail. So you think in some ways that they would have done the sentencing maybe after the election, because then if he's a president, then they can prepare for that. But if he's a regular citizen, then it's like, well, come on down, let's go to jail. So the judge could technically give, you think about this Trump prison time. Felony falsifying business records can be punishable with up to 4 years in prison. But is that felony that he did, is that a big deal? Okay. So he's been convicted of Class E felonies, and this is the lowest level in New York. He's also a first-time offender. Well, that we know of. So the judge could take into account that Trump has repeatedly not listened to this gag order because he's told Trump, look, I need you not to talk. And he keeps defying this. He's done it about 10 times. So if the judge told us not to talk and we talked, wouldn't we be in jail? So why hasn't this judge put Trump in jail? Some people say that this judge is a lenient kind of judge, so he may not even give Trump any jail time, but maybe probation, whatever that means. And speaking of this felony charge, I thought this part was interesting. So what exactly is this conviction of Donald Trump about? Is it about the Stormy Daniels? I mean, really, how many people across the country really care about Stormy Daniels? Do we really care about this hush money fund case? If it was taken out of campaign money, then that may be a little bit different. I think that's what they were trying to decide. And Trump, up to the last minute, still said he was innocent. And what do you think? Do you think he should be charged? So here we go. Why weren't these charges against Trump brought years ago? So the hush money payoff, it took place just before the 2016 election. Now, this is like what, 8 years ago. The fact that the payments was discovered in 2018, 2 years later. So federal prosecutors, they decided not to pursue charges against Trump related to the payments. And when this guy got in, this DA, Alvin Bragg, he said he was going to go after Trump. He announced this, the charges, in April 2023. Some people say that Bragg has got an agenda, because when you're saying you're running for office to imprison somebody, and Fannie Willis also said the same thing when she got in office, that she's going to get in and she's going to pursue Donald Trump. Yeah, maybe the interference over there in Atlanta, that's probably more important because you're trying to change votes for any type of election than hush money from Stormy Daniels. So my thing is, did he fool around or did he not fool around? Well, he's got 34 counts saying that he did something. So was the crime that he committed technically misdemeanors? How did it turn to felonies? Why not prosecute him for those crimes? So this is how they did it too. So technically falsifying business records is a misdemeanor in New York unless the crime is committed with intent to commit another crime. So you do this crime, and then you say, you know what? I'm doing this crime so I can do this other crime. And that's what turns into felonies in New York. And that's what some people are fighting. So if he does get jail time, would he have security around? Do you think you'd have security around if you were going to jail? Or if you've been in jail, if you had security? Well, because he's a president, that security would be there. So if he does have to go to jail for, like, let's say 3 days, he's there for 3 days. Is security right there with them in jail? Are they spending that, or are they spending it outside the jail cell? Stuff's never happened before. Okay, so we have to stay tuned for that. So are you happy that Trump's in jail? Are you not happy that he's in jail? Let me know. Drop me a line. Leave a voicemail. Text me 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Email parkerman2011 @gmail.com, parkerman2011 @gmail.com. Keeping it simple, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander.